Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live here on International Public Radio, United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. I hope you guys are all doing well out there. I know it's a little bit crazy time, people getting ready for the holidays, but we're glad that you have chosen to join us as always. We'd love for you to do that. We'd love for you guys to get involved and get into chat, etc., etc. Outer Realm, of course, sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee. So thank you, Folgers. We love you a whole lot. Just saying. And of course, we like to extend our thank yous to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, aka Justin Snicker, our award-winning composer of Halloween horror, sci-fi, dark wave, and electronic music, which can be found pretty much anywhere that you can get music streaming. So thank you for your generous contribution to our show of your voice, your music. It's fantastic. Tonight, we welcome for the very first time Reverend Peter Panagore. He's going to be discussing his NDE experiences, reincarnation, heaven, all kinds of amazing things. I'm really looking forward to this. And I know a lot of people have been sharing this up. So I'm guessing that some of you guys are really excited about this as well. But in order to participate, you're going to have to hit up some of our platforms, which is YouTube, International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio, Outer Realm on Facebook, Canada's Most Haunted on Facebook, Joe Montaldo, UFO Undercover, United Paranormal Radio, and United Public Radio, and News on the Flip Side. And of course, if you are on Twitch, then you can find us on UFO Paranormal Radio. And hello, Dave. First guy in. There we go. Look at that. So, Dave Petrella.
Why am I not seeing him?
I don't know.
Hi, Dave.
Did you click on comments?
Yeah.
Maybe refresh? Do you want to go out and come back in?
Let me just refresh the top. Yeah, give me a sec.
Yeah, it should be good. Oh, whoa. That's a little drastic. Anyway, welcome, everyone. Okay, back. There we are. How's that?
There we go. Hi, Dave.
Yeah, I can see everything. I feel better.
What the heck? I think it's when I paused the camera because the dog would have barked because the door was closed. It was like,
oh, can't have that.
Oh, let me pause the camera and let me go move him.
Yeah, Versace's like, I'm not having any of that.
He's loud for a little guy, so yeah.
Yeah, nope. Nope. I'm really looking forward to tonight's show, especially after spinning off of last night's show.
Absolutely.
You know, how to deal with loss and so on. I feel that this is going to be a little bit more uplifting. And I know that some of the folks that have shared it, you know, a couple of them have had suffered loss. So I'm kind of looking forward to hoping anyway that it brings some sort of comfort.
I hope so. I think so. I think a lot more people reached out with their stories than I expected. And I was very happy with that because when you share, not only do you heal, but you're healing everybody who listens to you.
Right.
Who hears your story on the radio when we read it out. Takes a lot of courage to do that.
Right. So, and we're starting. This is great. Chat room is already starting. For those of you who are not actually watching but are listening, really, do you want to do this one?
Absolutely. Thank you. Mark says, I had an NDE that lasted for over a year when I was gone from May 2nd, 1960. Or is that 50? No, 60.
1960,
and
yeah.
early summer 1961, waking up and facing the reality I missed my own 8th birthday and entire second grade. Wow.
That's crazy.
How'd you recover from that?
That's crazy. You almost need to come on the show and talk about this experience.
NDE. I didn't know. Is comatose considered?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's be a good question for, Dr. or Reverend Peter.
Yeah, because I didn't know that you could be out that long. I thought that meant that you were in a coma, and I don't know if that maybe it is part of that umbrella. I don't know anything. It must be if you're saying it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Mine have all been quick. So
a lot of people seems to have been quick, because you're being sent back and told, no, you have to go back. And, it seems to be pretty stereotypical. This sounds to me, but I mean, they do say, when you are in a coma, that the body, hi, Janie, the spirit does leave the body.
Yes.
Often, and the body is just pretty much, vacant for a while.
Do you know what's been happening a lot to me the past couple of days? I've been, maybe I shouldn't reveal this on air. I've been hearing people's conversations.
And?
We'll talk later. It's not about you, but we'll talk later. I'm like, all of a sudden I'll hear, and it's people I know. It's not people, not you in the audience, or it's people that I know, and Michelle knows who they are. And I'm all of a sudden I'm doing something, and out of the blue, I'll hear a conversation between 2 people or 3 people about me. So if you're listening, there's no surprise. It was very shocking. We need to get a guest on that can tell us what the hell that is.
Oh, that happens, because some people will say, well, if you're tapping in, are you subconsciously maybe tapping in?
Last people that would be in my mind, honestly.
I will have to talk about
it. It's a little weird.
Okay, here's Mark's reply to your question.
Yes. My parents thought I was dead and show up in some talk bunk. And I show up in the same talk bunk a year later, and I am not the same boy that left. This is a whole other story. This isn't an NDE. Are you sure you weren't abducted?
I know. You should contact us. outerrealmcontact@gmail.com.
Yeah, this is definitely. A whole, hi Bradley. This is a whole other topic.
It's fascinating. It is. Yeah, I know. See, Dave said the same thing. Mark could be a great guest. Absolutely.
That's a whole other story, Mark.
Well, we do like to bring things, that are different experiences, to our listeners, because here's one that I've never actually heard of. Exactly. I'd love to get more of that whole story, because we don't know. So, that's very different. NDE, contact are the same. I have made contact. Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know if you're interested. Please email us. Absolutely.
For me, my near-death experiences have all happened in a hospital.
Right.
So, hi, Wayne.
Getting rid of the bots. Bots are back on YouTube.
Oh, they're crazy this week.
Oh, I know. Blocking everybody. All these bots. Advertising. So, good times. But yeah, that sounds like very fascinating stuff. Would love to hear more about it. Look at that. Another one, 2 bots in less than a minute. Whew.
Yesterday was the same thing. It happened one after the other.
Same with Michael's show tonight. Do you want to go ahead and read?
Absolutely. He sent us such an incredible bio. I'm actually going to read it. Usually I change everything, but this was so brief and so well written.
Okay.
Reverend Peter Panagore. Now I'm Italian. I want to call him Panagore, but Panagore.
He's yes.
Right? That's what I want to call him, Panagore. Was recruited to TV as the 5th minister of America's oldest religious broadcast. Peter's 2-minute spot aired for 15 15 years, just before the morning weather on New Center Maine on 2 NBC stations, reaching 80,000 viewers a day. Previously, Peter served in New England as a United Church of Christ minister. His Audible Best Seller, Heaven is Beautiful, has been optioned for a film. His first book, 2 Minutes for God, is a non-denominal devotional drawn from his 1700 TV stories. He is working on his third book, built around his talk, and provides mentoring for spiritual seekers worldwide. Very well written.
Very
Can't
nice.
wait. Do we have him with us?
We do right now.
Yay!
Hello.
Hi, Reverend. How are you?
Peter, please, Amelia, and hi, Michelle.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
You want me to call you Panagore?
Panagore, you can call me everybody.
Panagore.
Answer to Mark. Yes, NDEs are on the menu tonight. So very good.
Yeah, we had a listener in the audience who wrote in our chat that he had an NDE for a year.
I'll bring it back up for you to read. If you can read the screen.
I had an NDE that lasted over a year when I was gone from May 2nd, 1960 until early summer 1961, waking up and facing the reality I missed my own 8th birthday and the entire 2nd grade. That's a story I'd like to hear.
We said the same thing. He's got an invite to the show.
We'll have to book you guys together.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Right.
Yes.
Book them together.
Exactly. A lot of good stories. A lot of good stories come up. So he's still going. You got to save this for an episode.
Save it. Yes.
I know.
Yes.
I know. So how are you anyway? How are things?
Wonderful. Good.
Yes.
Well, I live in a very rural place, and when I stepped outside today, there was silence. There was no motors, no sound, no wind, no birds, just
magic.
Yeah. I was like,
that's nice.
Wow.
That's what
that doesn't happen often.
No.
It did 10 years ago, and then they built this really busy road in front of me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But for most, the good part of better part of 13 years or 15 years, it was beautiful and serene and quiet, and yeah.
No, that's always nice. We don't get that
It
here.
is.
It's loud.
No.
It's loud, unfortunately. But so you have a really interesting story. Where do you want to start? I always start off with humble beginnings, and I'd like to let you lead where you want to go. That way, it's in order the way you want it, and we'll just jump in, and we'll periodically just show you comments from the chat room, and we can go from there. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Sounds very
nice
good.
and laid back. Good.
So,
Holiday comfort.
Oh yeah.
Chillaxing. I like it.
I have my
It's warming
tea.
up.
I brought my tea.
I like
Yeah,
it.
it's really hard to chill the day before Christmas goes nuts.
It is.
In my head, I'm going, got to do the cheesecake, got to do that. Like everything's going in my head right now. So I wrote it down so I could focus.
I'll try to help that.
Okay. Eat it or make it.
Eat it.
Eat it. That's okay. I love feeding people. I don't like anyone in my kitchen unless they're eating. I don't want them there with a spoon unless it's in their own plate.
Truth.
I have to have a
she
quiet
knows
kitchen.
it.
I got to have a quiet kitchen.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I've got to have me in my kitchen or I'll cut my finger off. That's what, it's like.
Right. Very good. All right. Stage is yours. Where would you like to start?
So humble beginning, born outside of Boston in a small city that had an Italian neighborhood where everybody called me Panagore. But I was, my family's half my family is Greek, and it was an Americanized name, Panagore. But it was all made up, but that's a tale for another time. So I grew up outside of Boston, and I went to Catholic school, and I went to Catholic church, and I went to Greek Orthodox church simultaneously. I had this mix in the two churches. They hated each other for centuries. They were, and they were a block apart, and mom was one and dad was the other. Ooh. And so I went to both. I was baptized Catholic, but I was the oldest Greek boy in the family. So I went to church with my dad on a regular basis. And neither of the churches were very pleased with either of them being married at all to each other.
Back then, especially.
Yeah. but they didn't. The churches told me that one or the other was going to hell. I was just a little boy. What did I know? I didn't know anything, except for that I came to the own conclusion that my parents were beautiful people, and that could not be true.
Right.
And who's going to pick? So that's kind of the introduction to religion for me. And but I started out shortly thereafter when I was 5 years old, well, in that neighborhood at time, had my first mystical experience. And so my near-death experience is a continuation of a series of mystical experiences that began when I was a child that I have not written about yet publicly, which is what this next book is going to be describing. Because mystical experiences are super common, but they're repressed. The church and society has repressed them for a long time.
I agree.
And near-death experience is a kind of mystical experience. It fits in the 4 characteristics that William James wrote about. They're transient. They have a beginning and an end. They're passive. They happen to you. You don't make them happen. They're noetic. They leave wisdom in your soul that's ineffable and inexpressible. And so the common way that this happens happened to me 2 weeks ago. My dad came to visit me. My dad just passed away. I came back for him from heaven and my mom to help them. But he just passed away and appeared to me in a dream. And in this dream, he telecommunicated to me happiness and joy. And he looked like he was 40. He's got a black beard and his old black glasses on, a button down like he always wore. And lots of people have those. Like 45% of the population are estimated to have a visitation from the dead. But nobody talks about it publicly. And yet it changes their grief and makes their grief a little easier to bear because they know their deceased loved one isn't really dead. And whatever their faith or not faith is, or what they believe about life after death, they know this one thing. And that's a mystical experience, and that's super common. So I had a series of mystical experiences that were different than that. My first visitation from the dead was only 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
I know. Well, who's to say who they pick, you know?
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, really, how wonderful for us that we get to hear this. So soon after.
It's part of this. It's this incredible thing happened. So I'm gonna skip ahead. Okay. So when I was dead, I had this dialogue. I went through this unitive experience. I'll cover all this stuff, okay? But I had
as you wish.
This unitive experience with the divine. And then when I was sort of shrunk back down to my cosmic consciousness size from my expanded consciousness size of infilling, when I got shrunk back down, I had a conversation and I asked if I was dead. And the voice said, yes, that you're dead. And the voice, no sound, telepathic love, beauty, joy. Anyway, I'll explain that. But it swept me across the universe, where I said, I haven't gone all the way yet. I messed up my story by starting in the middle. So I'm gonna go back to me being shrunk back down and saying, am I dead? The voice says yes, and I say, well, I can't die now, because my parents are suffering because my sister had run away and she had vanished and broken my family, and I'd be one more child that they'd lose. And I was swept across the universe. I saw many things, which I'll describe, but I saw my parents' life without me, the suffering they would have without me from beginning to end. And then I saw their life with me, gone back beginning to end. But in both events, the length of their life, they were almost equal. Okay. They were almost equal, but I saw them in heaven. I saw my parents' well-being. I had this enormous flash of was, is, and will always be eternal love that was universe upon universe upon universe in size. And it was all pointed at me as particular beloved child, and at every single human being I could see on earth all at once as particular beloved child, and at my parents with the same thing. And I saw my parents in heaven and with their well-being. And so I asked to come back to support them, and I was allowed to. And so I've spent since 1981, when this thing happened, trying to, my mere return prevented great suffering of the loss of another child. But then I just tried to be a good kid. And so in the last 3 years, my dad got really, really, really sick. A series of miseries that left him praying for his own death for months. And at the very end, I got to be with him and hold his hand and help him across into this place of his eternal life. And then this dream came 2 weeks later, and in this dream, I remembered seeing his well-being in heaven. And near-death experience for me is this lifelong unfolding. Yeah, the event happened at one point in my life, but there's this continual connection of like this eyeball that's always staring at me, and I'm staring back at it, and it pervades everything. And as I go through an experience in my life like this, I might remember something that I was not ready for. I was not prepared to understand. And so my dad comes back from the dead, and he visits me in a dream, and suddenly I realize why I'm very good with his passing. I cried when he died, and I miss him greatly, but I know where he is. I know what he is. I know how he is. Near-death experience is this thing that keeps giving my whole life long. There's always another gift that comes with it, but it has taken some attention in my life to focus in on the tools of contemplative practice in order to strip away enough of myself to make a containment for the flow, the divine presence to be inside me. And I should say to your audience, I speak mostly in a Christian language because I'm contextually Christian, but I'm a mystic, and I am not religious, and I've actually dropped the title reverend of late, finally, for good.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm leaving the denomination. I have left the denomination in my head. I haven't made it official yet, but it doesn't matter to me. So I work in mythology and metaphor and transreligious globally in mysticism. So just wanted to say that.
Okay.
So go
Should
ahead.
we ask maybe, when did you have your near-death experience, and how did this come about? We'll
Sure.
back up to give
Let's
an
back up.
understanding how you became you.
I was 21 years old, and I was at Montana State University as an exchange student from UMass Amherst, where I was an English major. And I went out west to study Native American mythology, basically, and ended up by spring break in English, and I ended up by spring break not wanting to go back to Boston because my family was wounded. And that's why I was there in Montana in the first place. I was running away. And so I was an outdoors person, mountaineer, ski patrol, Boy Scout, winter camper. So
cool. Winter camper.
Winter camping is starting at the age of 11.
Ooh, burr.
Wow.
Burr.
Wow,
well, if you grew up
brave.
just outside of Boston, that's extremely brave, because that's cold.
Well, we was my Boy Scout trip. We called it the Frostbite Weekend.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Sounds dangerous.
Tape everything together so you don't lose it.
Yeah. Oh, my word. Okay.
Wow,
so you decided to.
So anyway, I was an outdoors
Frostbite weekend.
Right. It's only so it was spring break, and I had 2 weeks off, and I went looking for I was working a ski patrol at the local mountain. So I'm also, working as in first aid. And so I look for a partner. I find a climbing guy who's certified in ice and rock in the outdoor club where I'd been participating. And so we find each other, we have conversations, we find we have mutually complementary skill set, and we decide to go. He was planning a trip into British Columbia for 8 days of snow caving on backcountry skis, and then 1 day of ice climbing in Alberta. And so we did the snow caving trip, and it was awesome. We had quite the adventure and saw lots of incredible things. And then we finished it up and learned to trust each other, most importantly. Because this is deep wilderness. Like, no one was going to come to rescue us should we make a mistake. And the temperatures were very cold and a lot of snow, but it was really great. We had such a great time. Anyway, the last day is an ice climb at this world famous ice climb called Lower Weeping Wall, and it's north of Banff. And I didn't have all the gear I needed. I had almost all the gear I needed. I had everything except for a second axe. You need 2 axes to climb. So I decided I could climb with a hammer, which is significantly shorter. Axe is much longer. You've all seen them in videos and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so with an axe, you can rest. You can actually set an axe and let go and hang on this thing, but you can't do that with a hammer.
Mm-mm.
But we decided that I could climb with this. And because I was young and strong and I'd climbed a lot, not ice. I'd never climbed ice before, but I'd been on a lot of rope and a lot of rock. And so there were other teams that day. We were the last team up. And by the time we almost reached the top, because of my hammer, it slowed down my climb significantly because my arm got exhausted because I could never rest. I could never let go and rest. I had to grip the whole time. And so that slowed me down a lot. And before we reached the top of the climb, we knew that we were in serious trouble, because you can't just turn around and climb down. You've got to go up, and then you have to take the rappels down, because it's the only way you can do it. So we had no choice but to continue to ascend. And by the time we reached to the top, the temperature dropped when the sun set. It was like 30 degrees colder in minutes. And the last teams had left, and they were looking at us as they were walking out as the sun was going down, and thinking, I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they alerted the wardens, for all I know. I don't know. Maybe that's why the warden came. The warden came in the middle of the night. I thought it was always because he checked the log and we didn't sign out, but maybe they warned him. I don't really know about that. In any case, the sun went down and temperatures dropped 30 degrees, and we were sweaty, and we'd eaten all our food and drunk all our water, and we didn't have any warm gear because it's a day climb. And we had enough food and water for the climb, and that's what we did. So we started having violent shivers within seconds, minutes. Every little muscle twitching in its own little pace, its own little rhythm, and the whole thing's shaking, and the whole thing's shaking. It's like, and jaws are clattering, and we knew that we were in really serious trouble. So Tim hauled up the rope, and it was a double rope, 150-foot rope, so it's 300 feet. He hauled it up, and hauled it up too fast, and it became a knot. And so then it was a tangle mess instead of laid. And we were scared. We were scared. We both kept our heads. Neither of us panicked. That's one thing we learned about each other for that whole 8 days before, that we could trust each other's good sense. And so we both stayed super calm, and we had a discussion about what we were going to do. And we decided that if we snuggled up against the rock together and canoodled, that we would die, because we were already in violent shivers. And so I'm on the ski patrol, and one of the things that we talk about all the time is frostbite and hypothermia. So like these are the killers on the slope. And so we paid, not the frostbite's not a killer, but the hypothermia can be. So we decide that we were going to die. And if we were going to die on the mountain, we were going to die trying to get off.
I understand that, because you want to give it everything you could. Did you feel your heart rate slowing?
Oh, toward the end, if I skip right to the end, I got to the last stage. We were on the last rappel, maybe 150 feet up, pinned into the mountain with iron. There's like iron rings, iron pins, and epoxied in with rings and carabiners and straps. This is the only setup on this whole climb that has this final rappel set up for safety. And so we're clipped into the mountain. The rope is tied. Tim's to my left. It's sometime before dawn. It's way before dawn, and the rope is tied to my harness. I took the other end and I tossed it out around the side of the climb of the rock, which took a twist, and I pulled it and it got jammed. And so this is the position that we're in.
It's like a perfect storm of whatever could go wrong went wrong.
Oh my God. And it doesn't even end after we survive. I mean, more bad stuff happened. It's just like, so I hours in this position with the rope, and I can't ascend. I can't go back up there. I'll die. I'll fall. The rope will come free, and I will fall. And I can't. And there's not. I don't have the other end. I can't tie it off. So we're in a bad jam. And by this point, my feet we're off the ice. We're on the rock, and my feet feel like ice blocks. Like I can't feel my feet anymore at all. Like There's no feeling in them. I have all my digits, but I have frostbite on everything. I got frostbite in everywhere, and my toes. And so the violent shivers had ended. We'd gone through the stage of confusion. We'd gone through the stage of, I went through the stage of getting warm, and I unzipped my coat. And at that point, I had the realization that this is it. And I'm not getting free of this. I'm going to die here. And at that point, this deep in my brain, early hominid survivalism that drove me through the night of just the one-minded, one thing, one survival, motion forward, nothing else mattered. It was, which carved this deep will inside me, a lot of like driven will. I had will space, and I just got peaceful, and I realized I'm not getting out of this situation, and I gave in. And I looked out at the bazillion stars in the sky, and I started thinking about my family, and I thought, they're going to lose another child. It's going to destroy them. There's going to be nothing left.
Right.
And especially in this circumstance, which was incredibly dramatic. So it was like going to be international news.
Oh.
Right.
So I then started falling asleep, and I would fall asleep. And falling asleep, I say fall asleep, but it was like not like snuggling in and kind of drifting off. It was like someone shut out the light. Boom. The light goes out. I collapse. I collapse. I smack the rock below me that I'm standing on because helmet, and I get back up and I pull the rope again. And I don't know how many times this thing happened. 2, 3, I don't know, 5, who knows? But it was repeated. And then I stood up this last time. And as I stood there, I got tunnel vision, which is the big black circle around my peripheral that collapsed super rapidly. And I started looking around, and this thing was like a telescope, very, very narrow, a reverse telescope. It became a reverse, like super, super small. And then it went, psh. And I wondered the whole time, I was like, what is this thing? What? I've never seen this before. I'm thinking to myself, it goes to black. And when it goes to black, I'm expecting, because I'm awake, I'm expecting blackout. I'm expecting darkness. But that's not what happened. I'm awake. I'm awake, and I'm not in pain, and I'm aware, and where I don't feel any pain, and where the mountain was in front of me opens into a vast, a dark expanse. That's some maybe call it a void, but it's also so deep and so wide and not scary at all. And way far in the farthest distance, like a pinprick of light appears. And this pinprick comes like rushing toward me. And as it rushes toward me, it expands in size and comes across this vast distance. It's faster than the speed of light. Just in an instant, it's on me, and it's ginormous, and it's super intelligent. It's like all intelligence. And it speaks to me inside myself, this intelligence and this will, this power, and it's outside of me, and it comes to me and it says, I'm taking you. And I'm like, no, the F you're not.
I think not this day.
And so I take all this will and I put it up as a shield. I'm going to protect myself. And it was like I put up a cellophane piece of cellophane. And it reached through all of my strength, all of my willpower, the same thing that had driven me to this place all night long. So there was this contrast between the strength of my own self in survival and the strength of this entity. To it, my strength was nothing. And it reached inside me and pulled me into itself. And now I'm inside of this, and I'm like a rag doll with no agency. I don't want to move my arms and legs. I'm like an astral self inside an orb of light. And this orb of light is intelligent, and it's talking to me, and it's speaking inside me saying, comfort, comfort. rest, welcome. And I
like you're
can,
being lured in almost.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And like
Nobody
trying to
tried to
entice
send you
you.
back?
Oh, I'm not even there yet.
Woo! Get the popcorn.
Yeah, no kidding.
I know.
I think I might
No.
need a gin and tonic with this one, though.
Well,
Yeah,
you know, if I had known.
I knew it was this intense. I would have been prepared.
I know you've got us like this.
Sorry, is this too much? Is this too much?
No, this is
No,
perfect.
no,
I
no,
love it. No, I love it. This
not
is
at
great.
all.
No, we've actually never had anybody describe it so vividly. A lot of people, have the experiences. Sometimes they don't remember all the little details. Like everything is very vivid. We feel like we're right there with you. So please continue.
Well, I've spent my life in pursuit of understanding. I ended up in graduate school to study mysticism in order to create a language for myself to comprehend what had happened to me. So this became my entire world. The divine did.
Wow.
So I found myself inside an illuminated darkness that was eternal in length. And I was like an orb of consciousness that was 10,000 times bigger than me. And I remembered myself as consciousness and understood that my Peterness was never me. It was where I lived for that period, but not me. That this was me. And I had no brain in the way of my thinking. So my thinking was my feeling, was my seeing. There was a unity to myself, and I had no molecules. I was not a thing, and I was in a no thing place. There was nothing where I was, no thingness. But this no thingness was illuminated and dark at the same time, and I could see with the consciousness of myself into infinity, but not infinity, further than I'd ever seen.
How did you feel in that moment that you were absorbing this? What were the feelings like?
Good question. I was unafraid. I was content. I was in wonderment. I didn't understand where I was, but I knew that this was me, and I was safe. And I was safe. And and then all these things happen at one time. I'm in timelessness. So and I talk in metaphor. None of these things are what I experienced. They're only tiny approximations. And when I was there, I knew so much more than I know now that my brain can't possibly contain or download it in bits. It comes in bits and pieces. So I've been 40 years in the pursuit of this thing. It's become my whole, my career, my life, everything.
Yeah, it's not the typical light at the end of the tunnel going down, your images of your life flashing in front of you. It's very intense. Like it's really deep. It's almost like you slip out into that collective consciousness, where whatever it is, the abyss, energy, your consciousness, Sophia, all of it. Like it's not typical, which is just fascinating to me. Like you're completely aware of something that most people are not necessarily aware of. They look for what's bred into us. Light at the end of the tunnel. Light flashing, your light flashing in front of you. You get sent back. They don't get into it this deep.
I went to an unusual place. I've met maybe 5, maybe 6. Somebody approached me today. We haven't talked yet, but maybe 6 other people who've been to this place of non-being. This is much more no self place, non-being, and yet the beingness of it was eventually showed me the all and the all of the universe and creation. It was the most unitive thing that I could ever imagine. More than that, I can't imagine it. It's unimaginable. So I have this. I'm this orb of consciousness in this vast infinity and contentment, and a portal opens in front of me, like the light appears in front of me. The light
Right.
appears in front of me, but it's an opening and it's a welcoming and it's translucent and transparent and solid all at the same time. It's like this pearlescent flow, and because I can see through it, I can see this incredibly long tunnel arcing
There
into
it is.
infinity itself.
Right. Okay.
And
Yeah.
I am attracted to this,
Mm-hmm.
and I touch this, and it enters into me, and then all these things happen at once. It enters into me, this light enters into me, and it gives me, it tells me my name, my soul name. It shows me the origin of my creation. It shows me that I am created creature. It shows me, and my name isn't Peter. It's the word that's being spoken all the time that makes my photon, singular photon self exist at its very core level of myself. And I went through a life review, and the life review I went through was a hell of my own making. I suffered all of the pain that I gave to everyone in my entire life from inside their body as they experienced it, as I gave it to them in chronological sequence, and the intensity volume was up to 10,000. And so I felt all of their pain that I gave them from their point of view in an immense amount, a mountainous amount of suffering, and juxtaposed simultaneously in two places at once. I saw all of the rationalizations and emotions that caused me to cause them that pain. And there was a disproportion to it. Yeah. A mountain of suffering, and I had like a feather of reasoning. And meanwhile, this soundless voice is speaking inside me, my name, my origin, I am known by the knower. I'm shown that I'm not just known in my life as Peter. I'm shown that I'm known in the length of the origin of my soul, which is eons long. I see my other incarnations. I see the enormity of my soul in comparison. I see that all of the dark places of my life as Peter were completely illuminated, and the voice was speaking love. I love you. I know you. I've always known you. I've always loved you since the origin of your being. You are my creature. There's nothing you can do to just accept my love. And so all of the love that I'd given away in my life, and all of the love that I had received in my life, was like a lens for my ear to hear the sound of the love spoken inside me. And it was as if I turned toward it. And when I turned toward it, all of that suffering was gone. And instead, there was this immense infilling. It was like being inflated like a balloon that just was ginormous. And all these facets of what we experience in life as goodness and beauty and truth and understanding and knowledge and awe, peace, bliss, adoration, paradise, all these separate facets, truth, they're all one thing. And it fills me up, beauty. It fills me up so large. I become the light itself, and I see the origin of myself as one photon of this entire unitive, like a field of photons that it is the consciousness itself. And I felt like it was going to be obliterated in I welcomed it. And then I was shrunk back to myself again, to my soul self, not my astral self, to my soul self. And that's when I asked, am I dead? And the voice said, yes, you're dead. And I said, well, I haven't gone all the way yet. And the voice said, no, you haven't, but it's your time. Come welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I said, but my parents, my sister, broken hearts, broken family, broken lives. And in that instance, I'm swept across the universe. I'm swept across heaven to the edge of the universe as it's being created. And my consciousness is like poked through this barrier between the two, and I'm shown I have no agency here. I'm like I'm not making anything happen. It's all being done to me. And I look out and I see the expanse of the universe and all of these galaxies, and with trillions of stars, and then my focus is brought into the Milky Way, and then down to our star system, and then down to Earth, and I see Earth as like this hologram. Only it's live time. I'm actually looking in the universe as it is at the moment my head's sticking in it, and I can see every single human being, everybody. There, it's like it's transparent and translucent at the same time, and solid. It's like I can see everybody, but I don't have to look from one person to the next. It's a comprehensive vision of their hearts, and every single heart is made of a fleck of like gold dust light. There was light of gold inside every single person, and a foam over all the earth, and nobody could see the light inside the other the way that I could see it, because I was being shown it. And that's when this expanse of love came to me in that has impacted every breathing moment of my life since. That the love is it's bigger than the universe. It's bigger than all the universes. It's eternal, and it is such a fullness of healing and wholeness and wellness and no suffering, that it was pointed right at me, and I understood I was beloved. And then I could see that every other person alive was beloved, just like me. And then I saw my parents suffering, and I saw the well-being of the universal self of the divine, and my inclusion in it, and everyone else's, but my parents in particular. I could see them out of life, and the voice was saying to me, just wait a moment, and they're going to be here. The length of your life was a snap of your fingers. You can see that now. Time is, birth to death is nothing from this point of view. So just wait a moment. They're going to be here. Their suffering is going to be over. They're going to be, and here's the state they're going to be in. But I could still see them in time. And I said, hey, and now I got pulled back into heaven again. And I say, I'm in this theater company at the university, and we're going on tour. And I made a promise to the director, and God gave me no response. But I still hadn't gone all the way. And I said, do I really have to go now? And the voice said, no, but it's your time. Welcome. And I said, well, if I go back to be with my parents so they don't suffer so much, can I come back here to this state of this oneness of being and beauty in you? And the voice said, yes. And I said, well, then I choose to live my life, or some words like that. And the voice said, you won't live yours. And like a finger flick shot me back. And as I went back, I became denser and denser and denser until the beginning of my astral self began to form. And in front of me were 1 million entry points, like cave openings. And all these cave openings, in the middle of all of these openings was a single beam of white light. And the voice was encouraging me to go into that, but it said choose. And this radiant of this white light beam kind of spread across all these openings. And all these openings were lives I could live. All these choices that I could enter back into this, and any life I wanted. The voice was encouraging me, choose this one, but choose anything you want. And I wanted some autonomy. I did not choose the fullness of the light. And I've been thinking about that for the whole of my life. I chose some selfishness off to the side. Not a lot, I guess, but not in the intensity at all. And so the next thing I knew, I was being crushed back into myself, and the worst day of my life began when I felt suffering again, and I didn't understand where I was or what happened to me. I felt like I got smushed down from this ginormous sense of peace and well-being into this crumpled, dense dross, pain, suffering, and I got shoved inside this thing. And it took me a while for my brain to come back online. It's like somebody booted it back up again, and my hearing.
So, were you still on the mountain when you came back into? Wow.
Still on the mountain. And I'm like and all I know is pain. Is like everything hurts. When I was dead, there was not even memory of suffering. There
Right.
wasn't like there was no suffering. It was like there's no memory of suffering. And now
Right.
there's only suffering. And so
Right.
everything about this thing hurts. Just being in the material world hurts. On this
Right.
entry for me, I don't know about anything else, but on this
Mm.
entry for me, that's what it was. And
Right.
and so I'm back in my body. My brain comes online. I start to hear. I hear sound. I don't understand the sound. I don't understand where I am. I don't understand who I am. I feel this thing being shaken. I finally, my brain comes up. My eyes open up. I see this thing, and I figure out it's a human being. Oh, it's a human being. Oh yeah, I'm remembering this is a human being. And this is rock. And where am I? And what's going on? And he pulls me up, and he's screaming at me and yelling at me. And finally, I can hear him. He's yelling, "You're dead. You are dead. You are dead. You are dead." And he's crying and crying and crying. "You were dead. You were dead. If you died, I was going to die." And he was terrified. And he just started talking, and I wasn't listening because I was completely confused and
Mm.
I did not understand anything. I was like, "What is this thing? What is this thing?" And eventually he got me to pull the rope, and the first pull, the rope comes free. We descend down to our tent and we self-treat for hypothermia because, National Ski Patrol. And
Mhm.
so we self-treat for it and in the proper order until we're warm enough to get into the car, which is also right across the street because it's not far off the Ice Fields Parkway. And then we survived. And everything was different from that moment forward for me. They talk about being born again. I began life 2.0, and I came back with all these understandings. I understood that I was supposed to die, and that all of these all these events were supposed to cascade out in a different direction. And
Mm.
I came back, and then I entered this particular life where I have choices. All these probabilities are presented in front of me, like everybody, and I make
Mhm.
decisions and choices about. And then all of the vision of the understanding of all of my future becomes an actuality. I see it happen before it
Mhm.
happens in my life. I live in like this constant state of deja vu,
Mhm.
which is really great in sports because you can see stuff before it's coming. But, which is and when you were younger anyway, that could happen quick enough to catch it, which
Mm.
I couldn't do before. I
They
couldn't.
came back with
I
abilities,
came back with
which is
abilities.
what they say happens, right? I see a lot of comments in chat. We will get to everybody. Mark's got some comments, and then hi Tamara, hi Cody, thanks for joining us. I will get to the comments. We will, I promise. So you come back with abilities. How has this changed you? Like, obviously, it's given you a drive to keep going, to learn more. You want answers. um how has that been for you? Because 40 years is a long time to be on a quest of understanding.
Yeah, the most important part of my quest of understanding has been my interior life. All of the knowledge that I've picked up and studied, all the books and everything that I've done,
Hmm.
it's second to the pursuit of the divine interiorly.
Right.
And the practice I practice centering prayer, which comes out of Theravada Buddhism and Christian mysticism, and
Right.
it's a practice of silence, of
Mm.
learning technique to silent the thought.
Mm.
And I
That's hard.
it but it just takes practice. You got to train the brain.
Yeah.
The brain's plastic, and it can be trained. And the
Right.
tool works because it gets passed down for century after century. And it's every mystic tradition has a combination of breath and mental focus.
Right.
They all and it leads to this place of silence. When the thoughts stop, duality ends and unity begins.
Mm.
That's the way it works. And I didn't, it's not my thing. It's history and religion all over the world, mysticism. So 40 years of interior pursuit with Kriya Yoga, also throw that in. That's been a big part of my pursuit. But after this thing happened to me, I was going to be an architect in the family firm, and got English degree undergrad, architecture graduate school.
Mm.
I went to divinity school. Instead, I went to Yale and I studied. They don't have mysticism at Yale. Okay, they don't study that there, but across the university, there's a bunch of classes in that subject. And so I got permission from the dean of students to do a 3-year independent study under her tutelage, where I took classes all over the university. They found money for me to get a professor in to teach, and But I kept this a secret for 20 years. I kept it a secret my whole career, because how do you tell people that you live in a different world than them? How do you tell people that you died, and that you're not a religious person and you have no faith, and you work in religion, and you're not a believer? I'm not a belieber. I'm not a believer.
It's like an oxymoron in a way.
I know, it's a paradox.
Yes. Yes.
But I know that the divine is real. It's real. It's the only reality that there is. And so I've worked my entire life on this interior path. And one of the reasons why I'm a communicator is because when I came back, the second morning I came back, I totaled Tim's car. You can read about it in the book. I totaled his car. And I was hitchhiking back to Bozeman, and he took the remaining money we had after getting arrested and jailed and paying off the Mounties so we could get out of jail. We took the rest of the money that we had, and he took a bus back to Bozeman. I don't know where I was, somewhere south of Calgary. I don't know where I was. And I stuck out my sign early in the morning and started hitching back to Bozeman. And I had this roaring sound inside of me, this like the sound of my name being called inside of my soul, telling me to speak. And what really ticked me off was that I knew that I had no words. I knew that there was no way I couldn't even understand it. It was just this roar and rush like a waterfall inside me. And so I began this long life of trying to become some kind of light spokesperson. And one of the things that happens in a unitive mystical experience is when you see yourself in comparison to the light, to the totality of the light, you get a measure of yourself. And the measure of myself that I've received several times is infinitesimally small, and given the length and the age and the size and all the intelligence and all the universe, I don't matter one single bit. All that matters is the light itself. And so I've spent my career pointing my finger at that.
So you look at light, you look at it as divine, but that it's and this is maybe where people get it wrong, is it's not divine is not necessarily religious.
God, when I was there, God had no religion. And I say the word God. I know that's a trigger word for a lot of people.
Yeah.
For me, it's Hashem, or the Chavye Vavye. It's the nameless one, the unspoken, ineffable. It's definitely not the old white man. Yeah, source, love, energy, Allah, Tao, Brahma, Atman. I'm 10,000 names and no name. No name. And so, not religious. God had no religion. There was no gender. I had no gender. I had no religion. I came back with no belief in anything. Culture, society, art, music, all of this language, it's all a human construct. And beautiful can be beautiful, but can be destructive too, and violent as well. But it's just a human construct. It's not the love that pervades the entire universe, that makes everything exist. The universe is secretly made of love. Everywhere, all the time.
Right. No, I agree. It sounds a lot like if you were looking at things from an extraterrestrial point of view, where everything you've described sounds a lot like the Council of Nine, which are light beings, complete consciousness, out of consciousness, in a void, and people who have experienced them. Gene Roddenberry, for one, actually, have basically felt as though it was the most amazing thing, and they felt they came back with a mission that they had to. They had to move forward. They had to educate people. They had to. So it's just two different perspectives, but it seems to be very, very similar.
Well, it seems like near-death experience gives the experiencer what they need in order, when they come back, to do what they need to be doing. And so I have friends who've been to the Council of Nine. I have a friend circle of near-death experiencers.
Very nice.
And our experiences are varied, but what we come back with is this shared light and love. this
Right.
beauty and this presence. And it's not the first time I went to, maybe it was the second IANS conference that I went to, International Association for Near-Death Studies.
Mm-hmm.
When I guess it was the first one. The first one when I went to, when I walked in the door, it was like walking into a bubble of light. It was
Right.
like all of the energy of all of these NDEs in combination multiplied to 3 times the size of the number of people there.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this aspect to it that's telepathic between us.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you've felt your prana rise, or your chi move, or you've melded with somebody, or you feel the energy move between people, or you can channel through your chakras, or you can put it in your hands. This energy, this form, this energy is the telecommunication between us. And so we not only know that our experiences there are different, we know that the light that we share here is the same. And that the light that's shared here that is the same, it's like the light sees itself,
Mm-hmm.
or the light loves itself, or the light hears itself.
Mm-hmm.
When this sort of communication happens, it's because it's already inside the individual, both of them. And because everybody's made with this golden light on the inside, nobody's made, if they don't have that, they don't exist. There's no
Right.
existence without the sprinkle of love everywhere. And so it communicates itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the goal, is to let it communicate itself. And so my pursuit in language has been to weave it inside of words and stories, to communicate it so that I can present it. And when I was on TV, I tried to do it in such a way, I had 2 minutes. I tried to do it in such a way that it would be easily consumable and not even noticed. And then I would meditate before I wrote, and I would go into the studio and I would meditate before I got on camera, and then we would record, and then I try to bring up the light from inside me into myself and kind of charge myself up and speak through my heart chakra and shoot through my eyes the light itself, so that the stories all were undergirded by this thing that isn't me, this thing that is so much greater than me. We started getting letters from people. People started writing in, atheists, Buddhists, agnostics, the elderly, the young, that there was just something about this. And I knew what it was. It's the light. And the reason why that they could receive the light is because they have the light inside them and they're open to it. And it doesn't matter to me if you're in the shamanistic tradition. It doesn't matter if you're Zoroastrian. It doesn't really matter to the divine if you're any of those things. Those are vehicles of communication to yourself and to the outside world. But all of them are, they can be wonderful tools, but they're not the thing itself. But they can lead to the thing itself. And that's really what I'm trying to tell people, is that you have this thing inside yourself by virtue of your birth, and there's an original goodness inside you. And if you look for, as Jesus said, seek heaven above all things, and all things will be given to you. It's the process I've discovered in my life is that the manifestation of the gifts of my life don't come from my grasping at them, but they come from my ungrasping at myself. As I ungrasp at myself, I create space inside myself for a continual flow of download of the divine self, that I let my will be God's will. And, I'm imperfect at it. I'm just a guy. I've got kids and a grandkid, and, I got to do this and that. I got to clean the bathroom, and,
Yeah.
life is like that.
You have to live life. And yeah, I think to achieve what you're talking about, you almost have to let go of attachments. And the great thing about all of it is you don't have to die to achieve it. Right?
No, you don't. And non-attachment is the process of self-release.
That's right.
And so one of the things that happened, and one of the gifts that I was given when I came back was, which felt like a curse just as much as it felt like a blessing, was this living in the state of non-attachment. I've had to learn to live. I've had to learn to like care about things. I've not been uncaring. I've been compassionate and kind, but my attachment to the world, detaching has not been my problem so much from the world. From myself, yes.
Right.
But from the world, I live in this sort of above, like, oh, looking through those eyes, feeling through those hands. But the process of self-loss, I love the word Islam. And I love the word Islam because it means surrender. And that's what this is for me in my journey. It's about self-surrender. And we can bring heaven here. This the perfection of, with a capital P, of the divine self, where love and beauty make multiple universes exist in their totality and a complexity that I can't even couldn't comprehend there, let alone here.
Right.
But if we just, each of us, love, that's just enough.
Mm-hmm. I think we're living in tough times, and there's a lot of division. So how do you factor in your thoughts into such a divided society right now?
And climate change. Climate change, the bigger beast that is going to, gosh, the next century, humanity is going to have a lot of trouble. Our divided nation is a divided nation, but the world's got trouble coming.
Right.
And one of the things that is most amazing that has happened in the last 60 years is that once cardiac care came online and the medical community began resuscitating tens of millions of people around the world, giving them near-death experiences, it's created a phenomenon that's been 60 years in growth. And there's a man named Pim van Lommel, who just was awarded a $300,000 essay prize by a billionaire in Las Vegas for one of his essays on near-death experience research. One of the things that he researched and has shown is that there are at least 10 to 20 million near-death experiencers in the United States alone. And that all of us have been touched in the divine self. And that number, multiply that around the world, we are a phenomenon. There is a phenomenon of something that's never happened before, where we've been violently and difficultly ripped from our bodies with trauma, most of us, and then shoved back in again, but we all come back different. And we've all got this interior light. And now we've got social media. And now we're all talking. It's been 60 years in growth. You got books, you got movies, you got essays, you got TV shows. It's the hope.
It's an awakening.
For the world. It's an awakening, and the best part of it is that the NDEs are a small portion of a much larger number of people who have had mystical experiences of 100 different kinds all over the world, all over the centuries, and who've been repressed. So when my TV show ended, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I started getting invitations from all these little churches around New England, all these different denominations, because I was a near-death experiencer and they wanted to hear about it. And I was clergy. So before every single sermon, I would ask the congregation, raise your hand if you've ever had a visitation from the dead. And nobody would raise their hand. And I lied, okay? Because I hadn't had one till my dad showed up. But I raised my hand.
Oh, they know now.
Well, yeah, that's fine. I don't care.
Oops.
That's total. This is no. I had to get them to raise their hand because this is what happened next. 50% of every single congregation raised their hand when I raised my hand. 50% of every single congregation. And when I asked them who's ever told anybody else, everybody had. And when I'd asked them who'd ever mentioned it in church, nobody had. Nobody talks about it. Everybody talks about it to somebody, but nobody talks about it to everybody because it's taboo. It's taboo. And because it's taboo, we have this huge public secret that everybody knows, half the population knows, but nobody wants to talk about it. It's like domestic violence was in before the 1970 when Marie Fortune came out with her book that talked about you got to talk about domestic violence in public. That's the only way. You have to make it public. There's no other way to change this. And look at what's happened since then in the domestic violence movement. It's been a huge positive change. Hasn't solved the problem, but big, huge positive change. And so now we have an opportunity with the near-death experiencers who are coming out of the closet, who are speaking, who are providing cover for other mystical experiencers to come out and talk about it. And it's not just people who are, it's everybody. It's Republicans and Democrats.
Mm.
It's independents, and it's everybody all around the world have these experiences. It's indiscriminate. But if you're in a society that represses this, that
Right.
tells you that a visitation from the dead is the devil, then you keep it to yourself because it becomes dangerous to you socially and religiously. So my hope for the world is this, is that part of what you're doing here in your show, and part of what I'm doing and what millions of other people are doing, is trying to raise the light, call it whatever you want to call it, because the name doesn't matter. The experience of the divine self does. And we have an opportunity to nudge the world. And, if not now, when?
That's a good question. I think people need to be willing to awaken. I always say basically that not everyone will follow on your journey at the same time. Some people will evolve much faster, and you'll see people just drop out of your life with no real explanation, and you just keep moving on. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Nope.
So I think some will get there a lot faster than others, and sadly, they can't all go.
There is this other thing, and this other thing is the experience that I have also had in the monastery, where the collective presence of the divine self of source in a radiant form, when two or more are gathered, three are there, and it becomes this magnifying thing. And when there's enough of us, we have that. That's the real true source of it. I've never tried to make anybody believe what I'm saying. I'm not about trying to convince anybody. Everybody's on their journey, and everybody needs to.
And this is yours.
Yeah, and this is mine. And but the presence of the light itself supersedes all that there is, and it expresses itself. It touches people. And if whatever experience that you have that has been transformative for you spiritually, if you aim your inner eye at that place, it becomes a window into your wisdom. And it becomes
100%. You're 100% right. I think people fear the unknown. Religion. It's structure. People need structure. They need direction. And I think that's where the fear comes in. It's just you're afraid to venture off on your own.
Especially when they tell you you're going to go to hell if you venture off on your own.
Oh, yes, of course. Of course. You don't seem to have any rights.
No. It's like they make God this abuser. You have to love me the way that I want you to love me. And if you don't, I'm going to hurt you.
Right.
It's like what is that? That is not
true.
It's not what Rumi was talking about.
Right. No, I agree. We're gonna do you want to cover comments or what do you want to do first?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question. Did you have the one NDE, or did you continue to have them?
I had two. And my second one was the first one was 1980. And the second one was 2015. My family has a genetic heart condition of cholesterol, plaque, and we were born with it, and it's killed a whole bunch of people in my family.
I'm sorry to hear that. I have that too, on my dad's side.
Yeah, my dad's side. And and so in 2015, I ran 5K, and I went to yoga class, and then I had a heart attack in yoga class. And I live in a rural place. It's an hour and a half to the catheterization lab, and by the time I got to the urgent care center, an hour had already passed. And so by the time I left the urgent care center, an hour had already passed. So I was outside the golden hour, and the doc, they gave me a decoagulant, gave me a 3% trickle through, so they said. And I had a widowmaker heart attack, which is 100% blockage in the widowmaker, and yeah, which is the thing,
I know my brother passed away from that. It was in his aorta, and he passed away. Thank you.
My sister the same.
Oh, wow. Sorry to hear that. It's tough. He was 51. It was really hard.
50s. Was going to kill my dad, but they life flighted him. He was outside of Boston, and they had this experimental drug at UMass Worcester, and they life flighted him and shot him up on the helipad.
Excellent.
Yep. But killed my grandfather on my birthday.
Oh,
when I was
that
one.
is so weird. And my brother passed away the day before his wife's 50th birthday.
Oh, that's sad too.
Yeah, it's terrible because every year at her birthday she has.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
sad.
had 2 NDEs. Do you find that people who usually have them have them more
Some do, some
frequent?
don't. I get this buddy in Australia. He's had like 12. He was like on an operating table or something. He was in and out 12 times and different experiences every time, something like
Oh
that.
that
Yeah,
sounds like mine.
yeah.
Okay. I had
And
four different experiences after surgery.
Right.
And I said I didn't believe that it was near death because each and every one was different.
Mm.
And it didn't make any sense to me at all. I didn't see my life flashing in front of my eyes. I didn't see anything that you commonly hear or see on television. It was very different for me.
I think there's a lot of people who are discovering that their differences are just the way it is. There's a lot of there's this site called nerdef.org, Near Death Experience Research Foundation, where they have thousands. Oh, you know it, of course. There's thousands of near death experiences. They're all different. It's amazing.
Until you go through it, you don't research that. You just, I saw that on TV. Yeah, that guy passed. He came back to life. He saw his life flash between his, in front of his eyes. And you hear the typical, he saw Jesus. He sat down, had the conversation, came back. I didn't see my mom until the last one when she said, okay, you need to stop moving forward. You need to go back now. You're not supposed to be here. So until that point, that was the only one that I would say came close to being typical. The rest of them, I said to Michelle, I was in the dark for a lot of them. Just that one was the typical. It was almost like they were trying to say, okay, we'll give you that tunnel light, whatever you need, but you got to go.
Stop hanging around in the anteroom.
Yeah. Well, I was very content and happy to be there. I had no intentions of turning back. It was a little different for me. That's the last time. I've had others before that surgery. So
it's intense. It definitely changes you, obviously.
It really does. It really does. You do come back with a calmness about you. No fear of death.
What I'd like to do, because I'd like to get to some of these comments, but do you want to do a station and sponsor ID first? Because there's some long ones here that I would like to touch on and get your opinion.
Absolutely. Let's hope I can do it better than I did yesterday. Yesterday was a crazy day from beginning to end. But you are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and myself, Amelia Pisano. Tonight's special guest here with us is Peter Panagore. Peter Panagore. We are broadcasting live from the beautiful city of New Orleans on 105.3 FM radio. We are United Public Radio. We are streaming on UFO Paranormal Radio right now. God's and UFOs and God's Extraterrestrials, something like that radio, and International Public Radio, and all and every single Facebook page you have ever encountered. We are on there. Our sponsors include the amazing award-winning composer Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker. The intro and the outro is courtesy of Justin Snicker. That's his voice that you hear on there. He's fantastic. And again, award-winning. You can find him on Instagram and on Facebook. And you can also find his music on Bandcamp and Amazon. And of course, from day one to every day, we hope and pray. The good people at Folgers Coffee, thank you so much for sponsoring our show. Thank you for being the reason we're here. Thank you.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah, anything would have been better than yesterday.
All right, we're going to say some hellos because there are a lot of people chiming in. Cody Ray Debien, hello from Taps.
I want to say hi to Mama LeBlanc.
Hello, Mama. Hello, all you bots out there that we keep blocking. You guys are ridiculous, honestly.
Yeah.
So, so we've got Tamara, Ivy Hayes, Michael Langley. Hello, Zachman, Wayne. We got Mark. We've got Carrie Langduck, Dave Petrella. A lot of people coming in with a lot of things to say, and these are directed to you. So I'll put them up so you can see them on the big screen. Amelia, just because we have a lot of people who are on audio only, not on video as well.
I'll read them out.
We're international. We've
Some
got
of them are
millions of
really
people
long,
listening.
though. Yeah.
Okay, do you want me to do it because I'm quicker? What do you want? You want to do it? Yeah.
No, I can do it. It just this one I think is a few parts. This one here. from Mark J.
Yeah.
Cox.
Okay, go ahead.
Peter, the last living image of Jesus, is put on a patient's door at St. Peter's Hospital, Albany, New York. Early 1980s, while I watched the world stop from the bus stop at Kessler's Pharmacy, as the woman I had just dreamed of less than 6 hours earlier was across the street, and when her eyes met mine, time stopped, and the image of Jesus is put upon a patient's door overlooking where we were.
Right.
Go there and see it, and ask to speak to the Red Cross nurse who saw me donating blood at the Marriott in 2012.
That's great. Sounds like a little bit of time travel. And then part 2. Okay.
This is different. I have altered live television in front of Tom Brady, November 23rd, 2015. Just see my Facebook comments. The day after Tom's quick count play near the 50 on the opening drive of the second half in Buffalo. As Agent Smith, the referee, in front of Brady's face, making the ref blow the whistle on himself as Tom throws a potential. That's the little controversial. I'm just saying. Yeah, meet the why of God, just like the reality future finds in the 2002 time machine. I love your comments, Mark. They're just really, really long for the show.
No, you can't do it, man.
I would have to read them one after the other. We don't have that much time.
Okay, there we go. Short ones.
Carrie Langdock, yes, thank you. Astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who started Institute of Noetic Science, has said such. He saw how small Earth humanity is from other dimension perspective. Very cool, Carrie.
Okay, Council of 9.
Yeah, really cool. I don't know if it was Council of 9, but some group collective light being consciousness has come to me in dreams and OBEs.
Right. And she's had a lot of experiences. But here's a question for you. There we go, Dave.
Yes. Dave Petrella asked earlier, you were saying you had an option, Peter, to return into many different bodies. Why did you choose the same body that you had left and not a different one, a different life in a new body?
Misunderstanding, Dave. I was returning to the same body, but options of lives to live in the body. Same body, different lives.
Right. There we go. Okay.
Different life paths.
Okay. There we go. So, okay, we've got, again, a lot of long ones. So we are going to let you pick up now where we left off.
Oh, sure.
Stage is yours again.
Let me come back to where I was. Where was it? Meanwhile, we had the car wreck, and I was hitchhiking back to Bozeman, and I was having life. Okay, so I have all these after effects,
right?
And one of them was this: I could catch things, and I could dodge things. I could see things before they happen because I'm always living dislocated in time because I have this constant deja vu, which was extraordinarily disruptive in my life, because I lived in the present and the past, the present and the future at the same time. It was just. It was just annoyance and difficult, and I eventually became used to it. You get used to everything, and so I eventually became used to it, and it wasn't such a trouble thing anymore. But I guess the biggest after effect that I've had came as a result of my decision to pursue the interior world and nurture the event itself, and so. I had the opportunity as an English major to read Romantics and the Transcendentalists, American Transcendentalists, Thoreau and Emerson and these people, and Emily Dickinson, and in England, Blake and Coleridge and those people, Wordsworth. And I was familiar, therefore, with the Hindu texts. And so I went on an exploration. I read the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas and the Yoga Sutras, Tao Te Ching, Chuang Tzu. I read it very broadly around the world, and I discovered that there were other people like me, that I was not alone in this kind of experience, but I didn't know anybody like me. And so I kept my mouth shut about it, and I went to divinity school to study mysticism, and I studied more, and I learned these techniques of contemplation that I've integrated into my life so that I could become a better communicator of the light itself. But in the practical end of things, the healing that I most enjoy is the loss of myself and the reconnection with the divine light, and to bring heaven inside myself so that it radiates inside my interior and impacts the world around me. So I because of this long practice, the result was what Yogananda promised, was the science of Kriya Yoga, the science of silence also brings you to a place of emptiness, which makes room for the divine presence to live in you and around you. And it becomes like this bubble of your life. And so my world became magical. The first, I got recruited when I was at divinity school, my second year, I always skipped chapel. I was the one person in the entire school that never went through chapel.
Naughty.
Boring.
Naughty Peter.
And I'll tell you, it was noticed. Okay. But I went to the library to study when I was and meditate. And so, but then this guy named Gustavo Gutierrez, this Latin American liberation theologian, came to speak, and I really wanted to hear him. I was studying a lot of liberation theology and Black liberation, feminist liberation, all this kind of stuff. And so, but I had to skip my lunch because I always snuck my lunch into the library. And so I snuck my lunch into the chapel. I didn't know what else to do. And so I'm sitting in the chapel with my Ritz crackers and my peanut butter, and I decide that I'm going to get a conspiracy going so that nobody rats me out. So I hand peanut butter crackers to everybody in my row and the person across the aisle from me in case they see it. So that I could, if I'm complicit, everybody is. Right. And so I don't know the guy sitting next to me. And at the end, he says to me, I'm head of the philosophy and religion department at Albertus Magnus, and I'm looking for an intern. Would you like the job? And I said yes. And I became a teaching assistant at Albertus Magnus College. And that was and then I those kinds of things happened to me. I at the end of the third year of div school, everybody had to preach. And I got at the end of preaching in front of like the public, a guy came up to me and said, I'm the head senior minister at this church. Do you want a job? And I'm like, yeah. So then when my job ended in the church ministry here I live in Booth by Harbor, Maine. Somebody came up to me after church one day. There's this huge embezzlement in the church and it poisoned the town. It was this terrible thing. I got attacked and blamed, but we won. We won this and prosecuted and cleaned up the town. And at the end, this woman leans into me and says, I produced this TV show. Would you like to be our next TV host? And I'm like,
okay. Bring it. That was good fortune. Yes, thank you.
So, and so then when I had this old dear friend from college who it's like, you were always going to write a book and you never wrote a book. When are you going to write a book? So I decided, I have all these TV stories. I'll put together a devotional book, and I don't know how to do this. And I contact this friend of mine who's a well-known writer, and I said, how'd you find an agent? She told me how she found an agent. And so I went on this website and I used this website, and in 2 days I had an agent in New York, and in a week I was in New York City signing with the agency, and within 3 weeks I signed with Simon & Schuster. Just like,
wow. So did you realize at that moment, Peter, that you were chosen?
It's this weird why me thing. When I came back, and I've had all these other mystical experiences. It's not just my 2 NDEs, which are big, and they're reforming. They're ego shattering. They're self shattering, and then you get rebuilt into a new person when you come back. And I've had a series of smaller but very large shatterings like that. And I was like, why me? I mean, I'm not an angel. I have an arrest record.
Yeah. There we go.
I was an anti-nuclear activist. I was an anti-nuclear activist, and I got an arrest record, and it's followed me in my life. And
what happens, right?
Happens.
But that tells me that you put yourself in positions where you can get the word out. You know, and I think that's what happens when you're supposed to get a message out, when you come back and you've been chosen to do that, you will always be put in positions where you can reach the masses.
Like this show.
Exactly
Tonight.
like this show, because there's a
With you
lot of
two.
people listening. Seriously. Yes.
I know. I've been thinking about it all day.
Yes. I
Aw.
know. It's fantastic.
We've been waiting for you all month.
Yeah, exactly. There you
Me
go.
too.
Right.
When
Okay,
Michelle booked
confession?
you, I'm like, what did you say, NDE? I'm just like, oh,
I know. I know.
Well, it was mutual.
oh
No,
All
I
month
like
long, I
this
you.
was like, I was
topic.
looking at my calendar. It's like, oh, it's coming up. It's
Thank
coming up.
you.
Yeah, what a
Thank
great
you.
gift.
Hey, we're fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah, we're okay.
Yeah. Speak for yourself. I'm fine. So,
Yes, she is. She is.
so you come back and you are put in this, like all of this amazing stuff is happening to you. You're put in a position where you can get your message out. I mean, let's face it, it's not that easy to get a book deal. Okay, here it is, falls on your lap. You happen to be kicking around, want a job at a TV on a TV show. Okay, like you just seem to be escalating.
Yeah, it seems that way. And so I'm just along for the ride. I mean, I worked my tail off.
It's a good way to look at it, though.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I use those skills that I've learned and I apply them. But I'm really, I know the length of my life is a wink of my eye. The second time I died, I died in the ambulance. And I wasn't on morphine because I can't take morphine because it makes me sick. So I'm awake and I'm meditating to control my pain in the ambulance. And I hear the paramedics say, we're losing him. And I'd been an ambulance attendant. So I'm like paying attention. And you can hear when you're meditating, you can hear everything around you. You just don't grasp it. I mean, you don't grab hold of it. And so I opened my eyes and I looked at her. And as soon as I opened my eyes, my pain came rushing back like an elephant standing on my chest. And so I dove back inside myself to meditate. And I was not inside myself anymore. I was outside myself in the dark tunnel above the interior of myself. And the angelic entity, intelligent, came rushing toward me, this time speaking in the plural. Welcome, we welcome you. We've been waiting for you. Come with us. And when I was in the urgent care center, I'd been telling my wife, I should tell you, I was giddy. Okay. I was giddy with anticipation of my death. This is like, today's my day. I've been waiting for 40 years to go home, and I didn't know when I woke up it was going to be today. And so I'm in the ER and the urgent care center, and my son shows up, and he leans into me and squeezes my hand and says, "I love you, Dad." And in that moment, I read his whole countenance. I see inside him. I see all this. Like he didn't expect this today. He's not ready for this. It's like too much for his late 20s and a good kid. And my wife is there, and I look at her, I'm like, well, honey, I've been telling you, first chance I get. And off I go. And in the ambulance, this thing happens and I die, and I start to go with the angel. I'm like, finally, I get to go. And I start to go, and I was like, well, I'm not confused this time. I'm going to think about this for a second. And without asking, I kind of like said, I'm going to take a look. And I turn around and look back inside myself. And I see my son, and I see that he's not ready. I see my daughter, who's just left this marriage with a brand new baby, and he'd gone to Afghanistan and bad things had happened, and she needed to get out. And the baby was less than a year old. I was like, well, who's going to care for these? I need to be here. And so I turned back.
They need you.
You waited all these years, but you knew instinctively that you still had things to do.
So I turned back, and this entity, angel being of light, had receded. And like politely, okay, I'll give you a moment.
Then
Comes rushing back. Come on. And I communicate, no, I'm staying. I don't even ask. Maybe I was like, is he going to grab me? Is she going to grab me?
Right.
But I'm staying, and I go, and I just went back in my body again. And then the next day, and I kept this a secret. I kept my NDE a secret for 20 years. And because it's hard to talk about. And
yeah, it is.
But I told everybody the next day. I'm in my room. I'm like, hey, I died yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. I waited 4 years for it.
My son said to me, yeah, the doctor told me to say goodbye to you because you were going to die in the ambulance. The expectation was I was not going to make it.
Wow.
And they are all
scary for them.
And and at that point, okay, so that day, my book comes out on Amazon a month early. And everything, my next book comes out, and everything just, so I know that I'm on this path, and I've doggedly pursued it. And I work hard at learning. I let people critique my work with harshness in order to improve my capacities. And they're not mean, but I wrote for a journal for 15 years. No, pardon me, for 5 years. And I was a staff writer for this journal, and they critiqued my work with a red pen. And with the beginning, it was hard, but then it became, these people are trying to help me. And once I understood that a good director, a good producer, a good mentor, a good advisor can be fabulous for me, I just accepted it. And now I have mentees too. Because you help the people who you think can benefit from what you can teach them in a kind way, not in a directive way, but in a, well, have you tried this thing? Sort of worked for me.
Right. No, it's a journey that has a lot of twists and turns, but you seem to be falling into it and with ease. Like, even, yes, I know, like, you work really hard, but it's like you just seem to, every time you come to that fork in the road, you just instinctively seem to know which way to go.
Well, there's a reason for that.
Okay.
And the reason is what I saw when all these probabilities of my life, of my potential lives, were in front of me.
Right.
And I entered into this entry point of the life that I would live again inside this body. There were all of these choices and decisions. And I realized that the thing that I wanted the most was the light that I refused to enter into in fullness.
Okay.
So I was given the choice of the divine light and fullness, and I chose not that thing. And so then I chose in my life that once I realized that this thing that I was angry at for sending me back without a full warning of what it meant, while I was meanwhile simultaneously pursuing it with the whole of my being, I was definitely an oppositional child who still did what he was supposed to do, but didn't like it. And I found that the deeper I dove into the light, the more light I had inside myself. And it didn't matter which choices that I made. I just leaned into the light. And so the choice wasn't really about left or right. The choice has been for me about living in the light and leaning into that in every single thing that presents itself to me.
Right.
And I didn't create these opportunities. The Marines have a saying that's something like, preparation and opportunity equals success. So I've been prepared. I've been preparing myself, but I don't make the opportunities. Those things just magically appear. The complexity of the divine action in the world, with all these decisions being made by all these people, it's
your path, though.
It's my path till the day I get out of here.
Right. Which brings us to this question for you, Amelia.
Yeah. Dave Petrola asks, this is a fantastic question, Dave. What kind of place would you like to go to when you leave Earth?
Well, I'm of two minds. I'm of two minds. One is I long thought that I didn't ever want to come back here to Earth. Long thought that I'm never come back to this place. What a hellhole. And but it's beauty. There's beauty and love and fabulous here too, but it's full of suffering. And so, but then I began to, like, after my second near-death experience and a couple of mystical things that happened to me, I'm like, well, I could make a deal with God. Maybe if I could make a deal that I come back as a bodhisattva or an avatar, I'd consider it. I'd be like, I'll consider that. Let's put this on the table. I'll think about that. So that's something I think about. But really, what I really, really, truly want is no self. I want, so in one of my subsequent mystical pluckings, where I get lifted out of myself and carried, I went through this process of being carried through multiple dimensions or layers or brains, like BRANES, like multiple layers of heavens. And at each level of heaven I was being carried through as we traveled toward the light, the more of myself shucked off like a skin of a corn cob,
Mm.
And I became more truly myself. And the deeper I went into the deeper I was carried into these deeper dimensions, the more of the false self was stripped away. And I knew that I was aiming toward the obliteration. And what I really, really want is the end of myself and a return to the capital S self, to the truest self of myself. This is the all of these layers of myself, even all the incarnations that I saw happening simultaneously. I was in a timeless space, and so they were teeny tiny. They were like the eraser head here on the
Mm.
size of the highway down the road, and they had an impact, but they weren't the thing itself. And so what I want is union. I want this state of adoration and awe. I want to become one with Brahma again, and Atman.
Mm.
I want to be in oneness.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can't be, I'll figure that out on the other side. I'll negotiate. Maybe I've got a little bit of negotiation. I don't know.
Right. But the fact is you come back and you have a choice as to what you want to do.
But there's not just one direction.
Right.
There's back to this universe, and it's not just this Earth. This universe is 13 billion years old, at least.
Right.
And there's been a lot of other planets in this universe that have snuffed out with civilizations and a lot of other civilizations. And so
Right.
those are when I saw my incarnations, they didn't look like Earth to me. I glimpsed into some of them. I don't know where they were, but they didn't look like here. But ultimately, all I want is the light. All I want is this incomprehensible, ineffable self. And
But isn't that what everyone wants?
A lot of people tell me they're afraid of the loss of self.
Oh, okay.
They're afraid of loss. The year before I died, I was backpacking on the Appalachian Trail in the winter. Okay.
Of course.
In Massachusetts. And
oh God, coldest place in North America besides Antarctica. But anyways,
so I'm out in the trail with this other buddy of mine who's still a friend of mine. And I have these two vision experiences, and in one of them, I get pulled out of my body and carried up into this heaven, which is the void. But I'm like in a containment. I'm inside this angelic form in a containment room, but it's transparent, and I become a column of fire. And this fire burns from outside this orb that I'm in, and it burns through my astral self and out the roof of myself, and it's burning inside of me, and it surrounds me. And I'm initially shocked by this thing that I'm on fire, but the voice says to me without sound, "You won't be consumed." And so my whole life, from my first near-death experience afterwards, was learning to let myself be consumed. And the consumption is the loss of not just my egoic self. This is just the form I'm in now. It's the loss of my own limited identity as a consciousness. There's the unlimited with a capital U. The unmanifested makes the manifested, makes the limited. And the limited is that. It's limited. Even when I was dead, I was still limited. Even when I was in this unitive state, it was both somehow my soulness and the fullness of the divine, both in this union. I can't explain it, paradox. But I knew, I was shown that there is the loss of self. And I think that you're right, though, Michelle. I think that in the core of every single sentient and unsentient being, every single thing that exists that's living with light in it, that is its destiny, is to be back inside the oneness of being, because the oneness of being is always one. There's not, it's oneness creates all the rest of the fragmentation, but it's still one.
The law of one.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's hard for a lot of people to grasp. Most people think that you incarnate, it has to be here and on this planet. It really doesn't.
Nope.
It's pretty infinite.
It's a big universe out there.
So you could reincarnate into the extraterrestrials that are visiting this planet. All you people out there, you're all fearful. You could be visiting yourselves in the future. You could be visiting yourselves in the past. You could be, have to give some thought to that. That's
Payback.
huge. That's payback. It'd be nice to the aliens, people. So you don't know.
Leave them cookies.
Leave them cookies. Exactly. Yeah. I thank you for sharing your story tonight, because it's just the way you've explained it is just so enlightening. People fear death. People shouldn't fear death. I think you fear who you leave behind.
Oh yeah.
Or how you die, maybe.
Yeah.
The pain. People always think there's pain, and the first thing they say, well, I think he passed without pain, or he didn't feel anything. I'm like, you don't. Your body goes into shock and shuts it all off, regardless of how you pass. You're passing. You don't know that you've passed, So, it's about leaving everyone behind.
But Peter, you seem to be very aware that you had passed. Like
the
death on the mountain, to me, really gave you time. Like, some people don't have the benefit of the time of knowing what's going on, but you had a lot of time to reflect what was happening or about to happen.
I did. I knew I was going to die for all night long. I knew I was going to die. I was fighting against it, but the odds were really against us. And as hypothermia advanced, because I knew what the stages were, I was, okay, I'm losing coordination. Okay, I can't speak anymore. Okay, my brain's not working right. Okay, I'm making poor decisions. Okay, my this and that and the other thing. And yeah, it was the most traumatic night. Excuse me. It was the most traumatic thing that ever happened to me. And I've had a lot of trauma in my life, like everybody, lots of trauma. But this was like, left me wounded. So every time I told my story until 2016, I cried. And then in 2016, because it brought up all this pain.
Yeah.
And in 2016, this woman heard my story, and she said, so you ever go back there? I was like, no, I've never gone back there. I never went back there. You ever think about it? Yeah, sometimes I think about it. She said, I'm going to send you back. So she bought me an airline ticket. She bought me hotels. She bought me a very nice ride, and a buddy volunteered to go with me, and we went. And we stopped in South Dakota at Pine Ridge Reservation, and we met my buddy's buddy, and they came up, a spiritual teacher from the Dakota. They came up to Banff with us.
Very nice.
They did the ceremony. Here, I'm going to show you this.
Very nice. Yes.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Very nice.
Gave me this warrior quilt and wrapped me in it, and gave me a new name, and did the ceremony. And my new name was Nagi Wachachi Nupa, meaning two soul man. And Jim told me, here's how you call your soul back. I can see you're very wounded. And so he told me to go to the mountain. And here's the backstory is that my buddy from Maine had sent him my book. And when he got the book, he wasn't there. His wife read it and said, oh my God, he sent us this, your buddy sent us this book, and I read it, and it's incredible. And he said, tell me about it. And the wife told the husband about it. And he had actually been to the mountain where I died for the first time, because in a sweat, he had been given a vision to go leave an offering at Cirrus Mountain. He didn't know why.
Wow.
And so this is months before. Okay.
Wow.
And then in that summer, months before, he flew out east to meet me, and we had this meeting. So we had met before, and we had this long conversation for like 5 hours, and he flew back west. And then we meet him up there, and he does a ceremony with me and another guy named Smokey. And I go to the mountain, and I call my soul back, and I have this cathartic experience where in the trauma of my emotional memory of the suffering of the night, this was a very dark place for me. And when I called my soul back, I was screaming and crying and kind of full of gushing and anger, and then I had this cathartic experience where suddenly the door of darkness of this trauma became this opening into the world, and I was like, oh my God. It's not the darkness that I had built around it. It's it's my entry back into the physical world to be this thing that I've been called to be. And then everything changed for me again.
Wow.
Facing your trauma.
Beautiful though.
Very
The experiences.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's, you seem to keep, I say, you attract different people on your journey.
This is the manifestation of it.
Yes.
And so I've never been, and there's nothing wrong with people wanting to manifest what they want in their life to make their lives better, healing or whatever you need.
I agree.
But my path is the manifestation of the divine inside myself. I want to make room for this thing inside myself. And the gifts, the results of it are this magical journey. So when I first came back, so I come back to UMass Amherst, and I traveled in this theater company when I was out west, and I was studying pantomime. And so I go back to UMass, and I find the student of Marcel Marceau, who teaches Hatha Yoga. As I read the Yoga Sutras in Paramahansa, I discover that he teaches me, because of the yoga, he teaches me that I can find my chi, I can find my chakras, my prana, and it's like a physical thing in my hand. And because of this circumstance that I didn't make happen, my whole life has followed the yoga path. Because in this one class, because Marcel Marceau was teaching yoga as a tool for mime, and I don't seek the doors. I seek the door.
The door.
The door.
The door. Yes. And do you feel you're close, because you've been doing this a really long time?
It's all open now.
Yeah.
It stays open, and it stays open because I've practiced for 40 years, but also because it provides long practice makes a gradual climb toward selflessness and silence, and that opens the door wider, but it also allows mystical experience to come more readily. And so as a result of this particular thing that happened to me, another event, a chakra inside of me opened, my sacral chakra opened, and peace flowed through me for 6 months through all sorts of bad things. Like I ended up in the hospital, I had to get surgery and all these painful things. But the peace never stopped. The peace just flowed through all of this. And once that happened, once I realized that I spent all my life opening this tap and letting this in and peeling away and creating this container that extends outside myself. And then once this lower tap opened, I discovered that I didn't have to fill up. I could just open both taps, and there's a flow, and the flow just takes care of itself. And so all I have to do is keep the taps open. Is get out of the way. I have to get out of the way. And when I get out of the way, then it's this safety for me. It helps me be grounded in the world because I'm not from here. And
because it's awareness. That's the key for people. I think it's awareness, being aware.
Oh yeah, it is.
I'm not from here. I know you're tapped into your higher self.
Yeah. And I didn't choose it. I took a lot of time to adjust to it.
Right.
It was years of. The studies show that it takes somewhere around 7 years to reintegrate after a near-death experience, and for sure. And if you do it on your own, it's harder. And I did it on my own because I didn't know who to talk to. I had help though. I had all these mystics who were dead: Teresa of Avila, Julian of Norwich, Hildegard of Bingen, all these people. They were my guides.
Right.
Nice.
Well, I can't believe it's already 11. It's like, where did the time go? But thank you. I feel so moved.
So much.
I feel so moved by your story, and I know you're going to do great things, and I know the answers are going to just keep coming. And I'm looking forward. I'd like to do this again. I'd like to see how you keep moving forward.
Thanks. I'd love to sit with you guys again. That'd be really great.
It was So wonderful.
So this is a part of the show where you tell everybody what you have coming up and how they can find you and your books.
So I'm at peterpanagore.love. Peter Panagore.
Panagore. How do you say it in Greek?
Panagoris.
Panagoris.
Petros Panagoris.
Yeah, I know Petros. I had a Greek best friend growing up. Her last name was Panayotido.
Oh, that's a great name.
Yeah, it was fun to say.
Yes, but there were never enough letters. I had this friend named Nikki Polymeris, and there were never enough letters in the standardized tests, the little blocks you had to fill in. You could never get his name in there.
Or her birth certificate, because her first name, we called her Jeannie, but it was a lot longer.
I'm sure it was. So peterpanagore.love, and Heaven is Beautiful is an Audible Best Seller international, and the one next to it is my devotional book, interdenominational devotional book from the TV show 2 Minutes for God. And I run Not Church on Sunday mornings.
Not church,
no doctrine, no dogma, no Bravo Sierra, because I'm not allowed to say that on YouTube, and mysticism, and it's all about mysticism. And I do counseling. I counsel spirituality, mystical people who've had mystical experiences, near-death experiences. They want to have a conversation with somebody who knows what they're talking about, and might be able to help them negotiate their way through. I'm that guy.
We shared your website on our Facebook group page. So if you're all listening and thinking, I don't have a pen, don't worry. Just go to the Outer Realm Facebook group page and you'll see it right at the top of the postings on the timeline. You'll see Peter's
will be up in about 15 minutes.
Absolutely. But his website is actually there on its own post.
Yes.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And have a terrific holiday. Stay safe. And, we'll be in touch. We will do this again.
Peace to you both.
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Namaste. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thank you. Bye-bye. Wow, that was fantastic. Wow. That's all I can say. Definitely. Definitely captured my interest. My gosh, that was amazing. But unfortunately, 11 o'clock is here and probably coming, almost gone. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. My gosh, big thank you to Peter at Panagore. Thank you to Folgers Coffee, who sponsored the show. Thank you to Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker. Remember to stop by all of our YouTube pages and subscribe. And if you wanted, don't forget the Outer Realm on Facebook. I want to definitely get that out there. If you'd like to see a specific guest or topic on the show, or perhaps you want to be on the show, drop us a line at the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com, the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. I want to thank everyone in chat. I wish we would have had time to get to everyone in all the comments, because there's some amazing questions, but there's some amazing information coming forward also. Anyway, next week, Wednesday evening, we welcome for the very first time Gail Hayson. She's going to be discussing remote viewing, dreams, table tipping, spoon bending, all kinds of exciting stuff. I know.
Happy New Year.
And Thursday night, we welcome for the very first time Robert Lindsay Milne. And he's been booked for a while, so we're really anxious to get him on. He's going to be discussing what it's like to be psychic, touching on astrology, and maybe even a prediction or two for the upcoming new year. So I know.
So exciting. Lots of fun.
I know. But until then, my gosh, we want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. Please be safe out there. And we will see you next week. Y'all better be back here too. Y'all behave over Christmas. So thank you. Good night.